Hello, and thanks for listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren. I'm joined today by Danny Rusteen, a former Airbnb employee, superhost, and author of the best-selling book for Airbnb hosts, Optimize Your B&B, the definitive guide to ranking #1 in Airbnb search. He recently published a new book for short-term rental hosts titled Profitable Properties. He lives in Airbnbs more than 2,000 nights, runs a remote property management company, and invested in a vacation rental in Colombia last year. Thanks for joining me, Danny.
I'm glad to be on, Lauren. I am meeting you face to face for the first time now, so the listeners know a bit little background, but you have a personality on Twitter, which is how I came upon you. And I enjoy the tweets and following and interacting with you there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And that is how we met. And I appreciate you coming on today.
I'm glad to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about TouchStay. Are you looking for operational gains in brand build? Meet the easy to use platform that transforms your docs, PDFs, and emails into branded information that guests read and engage with time and again. TouchStay is in the business of helping hectic hosts and managers kill the time burn with simple technology, helping you reinforce your brand through communication, skyrocket the guest experience, and create raving, loyal fans. Their digital guest welcome books are rich with features, including guest email collection and first impressions feedback capture, plus free email and SMS guest memos, in addition to providing a single place of information and inspiration. Get your guests excited about their stay, appreciative of your offering, and as happy as Larry, tell everyone about it, as they say in the UK. Guests love TouchStay digital guidebooks as much as hosts, even mentioning them in their reviews. Want to look good every time someone has a question? Look up touchstay.com and start a 14-day free trial today. So our goal, as always, is to make adulting easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a huge part of adulting. Today, Danny, we're going to talk about short-term rentals, including things from your new book, Profitable Properties.
Let's do it. I'm ready to go.
I got to know. So you live in Airbnbs. Can we talk about that first?
This is a life hack. Okay. I've realized this more and more as I've gone on, but there's so life is very complicated. We for some reason we like to make it more and more complicated, every facet of life. Not, taxes, everything. Everything is just so much more complicated as the years go on. So I look, just by default, this is just who I am. I look to how to uncomplicate my life. Part of that is just like easy stuff. If I have to, do something on the house, one of my brothers, I mentioned I have 3 older brothers. One of them, he does it himself. So he spends a lot of time, does it, and saves money. But you got to learn and do all this stuff. My other brother just pays for it. I just like to uncomplicate my life, if at all possible. And so when I live in Airbnbs, I don't have the following bills. I don't have, trash bill, electricity, gas, all those things, all those utilities. I don't know the last time that you have moved out of a rental as a 12-month guest. I haven't in a long time, but I had a friend that just moved out, and I remembered, oh, wow, I forgot that's what they do. So you move out and you have to fix everything. You have to fix everything. And then they come in and say, you didn't do a good enough job. Pay us another half-month rent. I also don't have to do that. I don't have to fix anything. And I get to explore new neighborhoods and whatnot. Now, it depends on where you're at, of course. I live outside the US, which is absolutely a life hack, at least for my lifestyle. I make US dollars. I spend outside. I'm in brand new buildings for half the cost. I'm spending $1,500, $2,000. So that's on the personal side. On the business side, it really gives me a perspective that, as far as I'm aware, and maybe you know someone, but there is no one else out there who is a real estate professional who has such a grasp of the guest experience, because they're living it every single day.
That's a good point. That makes so much sense. I don't know if you know this. I rotate amongst my Airbnbs. So when one books, I move to another. Not the same thing, but from a host perspective, I think I probably spend more time in my units than anybody else does.
I didn't know that. Actually, that's cool. That's a life hack for yourself. You're saving money by doing that. But also I do recommend, which I'm sure you recommend as well. I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard this, but hosts need to stay in their property. I say at least once a year, ideally twice a year, and use everything. Use the kitchen, use the shower, etc. That's cool. I didn't know that. That's great though. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. All your Airbnbs are in the same market, I assume. or at least
Yeah, west coast of Florida.
okay, West Coast. I haven't been there. Yeah, I need to go. Florida and Texas and a few other states. I want to. I know much more of the world than the United States of America.
I think the US will be easier to check some boxes. You can just get in a car and just knock a bunch of it out kind of all at once.
I plan to. I this year after I published the book. Well, the book is published now. Starting today, it's on pre-sale. But one of the things I'm going to do is I don't have any property in the US. Although I tried in 2012 to buy a property even before I heard about Airbnb in Las Vegas, and that didn't work out, unfortunately. But I'll be looking this year to purchase my first rental in the USA, and I don't know where. I'm gonna examine the entire USA for the most profitable markets, etc. So I'm actually looking forward to it, and that'll require me to go. I'm a big fan of actually going wherever you're going to invest in, going to that area and feeling it out and figuring out what the micro neighborhoods are, talk to the people, etc. So that'll be coming up later
I
2023.
totally agree. And you having, stayed in so many Airbnbs, you'll be able to do that, be very comfortable in those areas. Even though when we first got into short-term rentals, we bought a commercial bed and breakfast that was like functioning as a commercial bed and breakfast at the time. And that was in the same county I was born in, but I had never been to this town. And as I was looking, we stayed a weekend there. We took our bikes, we biked around. We tried to even get really intimately familiar to this town that we just hadn't been to within our own county. So I think that's a good idea. The idea that you're going to buy something, get it right the first time without really experiencing it, I think that's a little too optimistic.
It's such an important decision. I find it strange where, I mean, I get it. People are busy, but I find it makes me uncomfortable. I'll say buying something sight unseen. I don't know. I just can't do
Especially
it.
if it's a short-term rental. I mean, there's so many nuances to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Similarly, on a different kind of a track, but tangentially related, after I bought this rental in Colombia, I realized I take my own photos now. And I realized once I did that because this process, I hired 6 photographers and I've hired 1 videographer. I did that just because I'm in this industry and I wanted to learn a lot from all these different folks.
Mm-hmm.
And more than half the photos on my listing are my photos. I was so disappointed with that, and then it clicked, And I recommended this as well. You got to get professional photos, but then I
Yeah.
realized photos are so important to your listing. Why am I going to put that responsibility on somebody else?
Well, yeah. And then if you're taking your own photos too, what I've noticed, I have gotten professional photos, probably half my listings I have. And then I change something. And then it's like, okay, well, now I got to go back and take a photo of that new thing, something that maybe it's not like a chair or something. But for example, we took a full size bed and made it a queen size bed. We took out a table that was a little too big, made it a little smaller. We got a mini split instead of a wall unit. Some of these things, it's like, so what do? You stop your business and you go get a professional photographer to come back out again. Probably not. I'm going to update that picture right now so that people that are looking at it right now, ready to book and be looking at it. And I don't have to, be waiting for the photographer.
Genius. You just gave the biggest holdup for this is actually convincing people to do this. And I think when I post videos like this, I think it's like professional photographers that are giving me negative comments like, "Oh, that's terrible advice." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not comparing low quality angled low light photos to professional photos. I'm comparing good high quality photos taken with a modern camera phone to professional photos." But you just help me like sell this idea, which is like you're gonna have to take photos with your phone anyways
Yeah, you have
when
to.
you update. So you might as well learn, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't take that long. It really doesn't take that long
And
to
my camper is so small that like we couldn't even get the professional photography equipment in there. We had to
yeah.
use a phone. Like the
Mhm.
professional photographer had to use his phone to take pictures of my camper anyways. So we heard in your bio that you worked for Airbnb, and I just want to know what that was like.
That's correct. I worked for Airbnb in 2013 to 2016. I was the 700th employee. My start class was 13, which was big for the time. It used to be 2, 3 every other week. A year later, the start classes were in the hundreds.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was a typical startup scene. It was very cool. I was in the accounting department. I loved the team. The team was great. The company obviously was fantastic. And I knew that since it was December 2012, I was unemployed. I quit. I was working at a public accounting firm and I quit because I was just like, I I don't know, something hit me. I was like, I just got to quit. I had no job lined up. And my roommate came into the kitchen when I was making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch. And he's like, hey, he knew I was looking for a job. Have you heard of this company called Air Bed and Breakfast? And I said, nope, what is it like? And he told me from a guest perspective, when you go travel, and I was like, whoa, immediately. I was like, that makes a lot of sense from a guest perspective. I looked them up, and little did I know I'd be where I am now today. But it was a good 3-year experience. I mean, yeah, it was like the typical startup with the free massages and yoga classes and bike tune-ups and alcohol served, happy hours, breakfast, lunch, and dinner served, etc. I spent a lot of time there too, as well. In fact, I got there one day at 7:45 a.m. because I'd taken the weekend off, and I learned I was frightened. I was scared when I learned this. I got there thinking I'd be early, and there was already like 9 people there. And I was like, wait, do you guys, wait, what time do you get up? And some people were like, we get here at 6, 7. I was like, do you always get here at 6 or 7? And they're like, yeah. And here I was like walking in like 8:30 or 9 the past year. I was like, oh, whoa, what?
Well, nobody said anything, so that's funny. Well, I guess that's how startups are, right? Don't they do that so that people will spend more time there? All of those kind of perks that you mentioned.
Absolutely. 100%. That's the reason why. I mean, they took it to another level. Like, I rode my bike to work and I got bike tune-ups. So that was, it was great. But
I need a bike tune-up so bad. That reminds me. So I have a question about using the term short-term rental versus Airbnb and what your thoughts are on that. Like, is Airbnb becoming Kleenex to that term of short-term rental?
Well, kind of. It was becoming that. Short-term rentals was obviously pre-Airbnb. Airbnb was founded in 2008. Airbnb became like the Kleenex Airbnb, and it was great because the guest and the host would use it. The host had an Airbnb, the guest stayed at an Airbnb. But unfortunately, and part of the reason, there's various reasons why I wrote this new book. But part of the reason was because Airbnb has shown to me that their rhetoric has been, you are hosts, you are partners, we respect you, but their actions have not been consistent with that, and they haven't been making improvements to the platform in a level that I would consider bare minimum over the past many, many years. They've upset many, many hosts. They've upset many, many guests. Speaking as a guest and a host, and being number one fanboy of Airbnb, and having a lot of my net worth involved in Airbnb, not only because my business, but I was also am a part owner of being an employee. And they have pissed me off various times. And so this is very disappointing because they have the ability to just dominate, and they are dominating, but the tide is turning. People are going direct booking. That's become a huge, I was talking to a owner of a message automation platform, PMS platform, and he is like, yeah, we're implementing direct booking features, not because I think it's particularly attractive, but because every one of my customers is asking. I have to, and everyone else is. So, and a lot of people are actually moving away from Airbnb. The term Airbnb, they're actually consciously, as I am too, calling it rentals, short-term rentals, vacation rentals. And that is because I think in 2023 and beyond, in 2018, when I wrote the last book and before, you basically, most of the time, people would Airbnb the space that they already had. In 2023 and beyond, they are going out and looking for Airbnbs, profitable markets, micro neighborhoods, and profitable properties. And constructors are building units for Airbnb specifically. So the process has made its way all the way to day one of the process. And so I think the shift is to leverage Airbnb, leverage the platforms for your short-term rental business and running it more like a business, because there is tangible value when you go and sell your rental, and whenever you sell it, people will pay for a list of 1,000 prior guests, emails that you have, a website that gets 10,000 visits, and a Instagram account that has 5,000 followers. That has value nowadays, and so that's the tide is turning, I think, away now from Airbnb to more short-term rentals.
What are some of those examples of how Airbnb is upsetting guests, and I'm sorry, hosts?
Well, the big one was in 2020 when they decided to do away with their cancellation policy. And so for anyone who wasn't aware, wasn't a host back then, Airbnb has a cancellation policy. They had 3 at the time: flexible, strict, and moderate. And Airbnb said, because of the situation in 2020, the worldwide pandemic, they said, we're going to do away with your cancellation policy. We're going to give guests all their money back. Now, you can argue with, was that the correct thing to do? The way in which they communicated it was horrendous. There was no host involvement at all. And there was solutions. Hey, we'll delay your trip for 6 months. We'll give you a credit for 6 months. No, they just sent the money back. That's one way. There's other ways where the platform is very pro guest. So if there's a security deposit issue, I advise hosts, if you have a security deposit, first of all, there is no security deposit on Airbnb. They removed that now. You don't even see that on the platform. And even when they did have that, you still have to ask the guest, who will deny 95% of the time. And then you do a resolution request. And sometimes you get paid out, sometimes you don't. I had, one of my managed properties, I had a rental car, guest rental car. There was scratches on the rental car. For the listeners, I'll be more descriptive. Near the side mirror, there was scratches right there, like horizontal scratches, and those horizontal scratches matched exactly the scratches on the garage frame door. So we took pictures and we sent to Airbnb, and they didn't refund it. And it just seemed so obvious to me. And they didn't refund it. Now, there was another time where I had a rental. It was a mansion, and the guest cracked the $6,000 wooden table, and Airbnb said no there as well. That owner just said, forget it. We don't need the money. Take it off. And Airbnb then was like, oh, okay, we'll pay you. We'll pay you. And they sent the money, and then we put back on the rental. But those are some of the big reasons why Airbnb is upsetting hosts. Oh, and also, it's not, all of us have heard about the hosts who have been kicked off the platform for seemingly no apparent reason. And I hate, and I don't say that word often, but I mean it in this time, the way that Airbnb deals with that, which is very corporate. We're not saying anything. Well, say something. This is actually, there's a lot of hosts who are very worried about this. And there's hosts who they've done that too. And then they talk about their story. Hey, I don't use Airbnb anymore because they banned me, but I'm still a very successful Airbnb host. Oh, so we can do it. Oh, and Airbnb makes me mad. This guest did this. Oh, well, I heard about this host who doesn't use Airbnb because they kicked him off, but he or she's doing just fine. I could go on.
Yeah, those are good examples. I just wanted people to know that if they are thinking about getting into this business and they're thinking about doing short-term rentals, that Airbnb should be a portion of your business. Think of it as a marketing tool, as a marketplace. A lot of people are like, well, I'm doing Airbnb. Should I do VRBO? And I'm like, of course. I'm surprised that that's a question. You should have a direct booking website. I think you should have a property management system, property management software, and treat it like a business. And I totally agree that it seems to be heading that way. It used to be sort of a hobbyist thing. I am a stay-at-home mom. Maybe we have this mother-in-law suite. I'm going to put that on Airbnb. I'm going to clean it myself. I'm going to do all the messaging myself. I think that's sort of how it used to be. So I totally agree. It's becoming definitely more of a business, and people are purchasing units specifically to short-term rent them.
Yep. I just signed up. We just connected, but what you might not know about me is that in the past, I recommended you only use Airbnb. And I did that because, first of all, keep in mind who I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to, and I myself am, a small-time host. I don't have goals of getting, super leveraged 10, $20 million portfolios. I like to pick and choose very specific deals and get the max aura out of those deals. So I'm talking with hosts who have 1, 2, 5, maybe 10 maximum listings, but typically just a few. And so back in the day, especially when there wasn't all these tools to help you have a direct booking website, it took a lot of time to build a website, to create a presence. It's not like you just put up an Instagram account, you got direct bookings. No, it took a lot of time. And now it takes a lot of time as well. Still, I mean, that's a different business. But my thought process has changed to what you said exactly, which is we're now leveraging the OTAs as marketing platforms, and they spend a lot of money on marketing. So it would be unwise not to use them.
Yep. So can you talk a little bit about your new book, Profitable Properties? Are there a couple of tidbits that you'd like to share with listeners?
Yeah, in Profitable Properties. So it's an all-in-one guide for short-term rental hosts and real estate investors. It takes you from the very beginning of identifying markets and properties all the way through managing them, pricing them, optimizing them, how to set up your direct booking. And it's a massive book. It's going to be like 400 pages probably. So but to let's see, probably a big hit chapter will be how to get rid of negative reviews on Airbnb.
Huge.
And yeah, and it is actually a chapter. And I also have two other accompanying chapters, which is like, how to avoid them in the first place. And then the other
Sure.
chapter is if you can't avoid them and you get them and you can't get rid of them, well, how do you respond to them? Which
Very good.
is also a strategy. But the one tidbit of information I'll say is make the the customer service agent's job easier. When you go and you call them, they have the ability to remove the review for any reason. Any reason. It doesn't have to violate a policy. They say that in the policy. We can remove a review whenever we want. So the interpersonal relationship, like the human connection, actually matters. But the other thing is a lot of hosts, when they figure this out, they barrage this customer service rep with like, here's the top 17 reasons why this review should be removed. And they're like detailed about it. They send like a legal letter. They don't need that. The rep needs one reason. So just give them the biggest reason that you have, give it to them and be nice to them. And it gets removed more often than you think. If it doesn't get removed, then all you could do is wait, call back in 2 weeks at a different time of the day and a different day of the week. And you'll try and get someone from the headquarters from the US. They hire a lot of outsourced folks. So you can just tell that by the accent, but it doesn't, the time of the day, I've called it very random times. And like sometimes I get people in headquarters and sometimes I get people in the call center. So just call it different time, different day.
Love that. That's interesting. And that's a really good point. What about, so you said that you have in that book kind of soup to nuts, start to finish, how to find a property. That intimates that this is still a good time to get into this business, that the Airbnb bust rumors that we're hearing are not true.
If you know what you're doing, and you know what you're doing, it is such good money. And it's pretty easy money too. Hotels had it very good for a very long time. I mean, they really had it good. So no, there is what's happening now is there is influencers who aren't in the Airbnb game and they have a lot of money, extra money, and they purchase properties in super saturated markets. And they probably didn't really look at where exactly to purchase them. They don't really look at, the size of home. There's a lot of decisions that go into this.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to manage it, to price it. All of the, at this point, it's pretty complicated. It's like a video game that gets a new edition every time, or my Mac, every new update, there's like new features, or the iPhone or anything. Everything, right, is more complicated. Nowadays, same with Airbnb. So these influencers, they posted on YouTube like, "Hey, I had a horrible investment. This Airbnb." They probably overpaid as well. From the videos I saw, sounds like they overpaid, and they just did everything wrong. And then they go in public about it and they think Airbnb is wrong. So that's great for us because we know what we're doing and this doesn't really affect us. But if times aren't as good as what they were a year ago, but if you are fundamentally sound and you know what you're doing in terms of hospitality, in terms of optimizing your online listing to convert well, and you're thinking consciously about your listing and how you can improve, there is still, there's winners in every market. There's still guest booking. There's still listings that are at nearly 100% occupancy. Be one of those winners. And how you can do that, I hope I can help. But there's a lot of information online. The biggest thing is, there's maybe too much information online. Everyone from hospitality professionals to traditional real estate folks, they all want to be, Airbnb short-term rental experts now. And so that might be the difficult part in finding who to listen to. And yeah.
I wanted to ask you too about your first book, which was about kind of the algorithm of Airbnb. Do you have any advice for current hosts or people that might be hosts soon for how to create their listings and how to stand out in the algorithm? And are there any tweaks that people can make if they feel like they're not getting enough bookings to juice the algorithm?
Yes. Optimize your BNB. That was, I'll just quickly say the difference between the two, but very simply, that was written for, I would say, intermediate and advanced Airbnb host using Airbnb. The examples are Airbnb. Everything is Airbnb there. This book is more general profitable properties. But the biggest thing that I see is a lot of people, copywriting and marketing typically, and I'm going through this right now with my book. People want to give a lot of advice, and they're like, so how typical copywriting goes is like you have to identify don't talk about you and what you offer and why your product is good. Talk about the guest problem, what problems they've done, what solutions have they gone through, take them on a little bit of a story, and then you have a solution for them. But on Airbnb, that's not the case, actually. You want to tell the guest exactly who you are, what you have. They're paying $150 a night. What are they getting in return? So how we do that is we have a bunch of strategies. The biggest one is bullet point in an order of most important amenity or feature, whatever you have, bullet point what they're getting. This is what they're paying. What are they getting? And understand that by the time they get down to the text, they've already seen the title and the photos. So, if you have a hot tub in the cover photo, you don't also want to put hot tub in the title and then, hot tub in the text, because now you're repeating and it's not efficient. What goes in the text better is things that they can't really see from the photo. You just want to pile on more information, because if I call them an FPG, future potential guest, if they're looking at your text, and this is kind of a really recent realization I had, text is actually the most important aspect of your listing, because those FPGs who are actually reading, they're just looking for something more to convince themselves to book. They're not reading 50 listings. They're reading 2 or 3 final listings, seeing what is in there. And so it's clear to me that the best, most optimized way to do that is to bullet point it out, make the information really easy to digest for the FPGs, and do it in understand that the highest part is your most important. That the title on the left side, that's the most important section, and the text, the highest part, is the most important. So a lot of people say like, "Welcome to Middlebury Cottage, a 4-bedroom 3-bathroom home in Old Town," and it's like, all that stuff is just a wasted space, and it's the most important space.
Okay, interesting. I love that. That's so tactical. So yeah, the hot tub example is great. Bam, bam, bam. They already can see the hot tub. That's probably a very emotional thing, very visceral thing that they see once they see that in the pictures. So what's the one more thing they want to know? How far is it from the airport? Is it walkable? Do I need a car? Maybe some things like that they can't see from the pictures. That's really good.
Yeah. Do you have heated floors, a sound system? What can they not see from the photos?
Very good. That's amazing. I wanted to ask also about, do you have a section in your book about cleaners?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What's the most important things to think about?
Yeah, chapter 4.4, all about cleaning. Cleaners are so underleveraged. Your cleaner is your property manager. They're natural property managers. The book is kind of about also how to manage remotely. I hear a lot of, most people, a lot of people hire property managers. A lot of people are not happy with their property managers. With the tools you have now, you don't need to spend that much time, even if you don't live in the same area. My place is in Colombia and I don't live there, and it's totally automated. Well, not totally, but it's pretty automated. And a lot of that has to do with my cleaner. My cleaner's already there. They interact with the guests. They coordinate maintenance. The biggest tip I would say is do not go for a cleaning team that is a company. That's a big company. They have a bunch of cleaners. They're going to give you a new cleaner every time. You want to go local. Find a local person who is a cleaner. They don't even have to be technically a cleaner. Well, yeah, I mean, they should know how to clean. But what I'm saying is like they don't have to have a professional company. They need to be a good cleaner and someone who is rather responsive. That's the biggest thing, is not getting someone who you can form a relationship with. Pay them very well. I hear still a lot of advice. This is how, said in different terms, this is how we, nickel and dime our cleaners. This is how we get cleaners for less than their cost, and then, by the way, be sure these experts who are preaching this, ask them to see their listings. Any expert that you're listening to who doesn't show you their listings, maybe you want to see their listings, because I've seen some of their listings and they're very poorly rated. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the reason is because they're not in the game of getting 5.0 stars. They're in the game of getting more listings. And so they're kind of at a minimum, they've done their risk management. Okay, we need a minimum of 4.5 or 4.6, and we need to get 10 listings every week. And we know that 2 will fall off and 8 just won't say anything. So they're in a different mindset than, maximizing the tactical operations of the Airbnb. But that's my biggest thing. Get a cleaner you can have a relationship with, pay them well. They will do so much more for you than just clean.
I agree. And I love the point of it being local. The idea of having a company can be appealing because there's a bench there. If this cleaner is sick, there's somebody that's going to backfill it. They can kind of, in some ways, guarantee a clean will never be missed, for example, or the cleaner won't get behind or things like that. But I have totally local cleaners. They do extra things for me all the time. And it's because they're paid well, and they don't nickel and dime me. If I have to ask a cleaner, like, hey, are you in town today? Could you run by and do XYZ thing? They don't be like, yeah, but it's a $20 trip fee. There's nothing like that. One of them, I have all the supplies shipped to her house. She brings them there because I can't ship them to the property. So, that's exactly right. And that's a really good point. And I'm glad you made it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of complaints as well. Oh, my cleaner, they always forget to do this. I always have to remind them to do that. You know why? It's because you don't pay them enough, and they have no incentive to remember to do those extra, because as every now and then you're like, okay, can you do this? Can you refill the ice cube trays? Now can you clean the lint tray, whatever, on the washer?
Yeah. Yep.
Huge underleveraged aspect, and real experienced hosts understand this.
Good point. Is there anything else you want to add, Danny, before we wrap up?
We didn't talk much about actually finding vacation rentals. And so this is a big topic as itself, but I like to put markets into 2 categories, discovered and undiscovered. Discovered and neither is the right option. I prefer undiscovered markets, which are markets that, they're not going to appear on the top 50 most investable places on those lists online, but what they have less of a supply. They have less of a demand. There's less incoming guests, right, than a discovered market, which is New York, Miami Beach. But there's usually
Gatlinburg.
Yep, Gatlinburg, Smoky Mountains. Yeah. That's another.
Blue Ridge. Yep.
Yeah, Palm Springs.
Yep.
But so I just said the demand is less, the incoming guests are less, but oftentimes the supply, which is the amount of rentals, is even lower.
Right.
So you're just going into a market that's a little bit easier to be successful at, and you can make just as much money oftentimes. And so that, yeah, I'll leave it with that. Also, I wanted to offer your viewers, your listeners, a discount code, 50% discount code on my upcoming course that will be released any day now. So you can maybe put that in the description link. The code we'll give.
Okay. Will do. And will you let people know how to get in touch with you, Danny?
Sure. I can be found you can type in optimize my Airbnb on Google, and all of my social media, my website, the books will all come up under that name.
Got it. I'll put that in the show notes along with that discount code. Everybody, you can follow me on Twitter at Adulting is Easy. I'm on Instagram at Adulting is Easy Real, YouTube at Adulting is Easy. I'm also on Facebook, or you can email me at realadultingiseasy@gmail.com. If you like this episode, you'll also like episode 96, branding your STRs, and episode 118 about STR regulations. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Hopefully Danny and I have made adulting a little easier for you.